recording. We are live in three, two, one. I had burp. All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Keeping It Real with Tiff and Carl. I'm Carl Rabun,
I am Tiffany Salcido
and we are smack dab in the middle of February. And it
already.
is the time, it's the time for many things, right? It's the time for the end of football season. It's the time of Black History Month forever. And it's the time of lovers. Sure, right? Just, do you have what are your Valentine's plans, Tiff? I mean, it's coming up.
Ooh, well, I'm happily married, so Valentine's Day is every day. Uh,
Yeah.
so pretty much nothing. Um, right. Well, we're here in Mexico, and so the little brewery by our house, which happens to be like the local watering hole, they're doing like a little Valentine's Day event, and they're doing like speed dating, and then they're doing how well do you know your spouse, and then they have something else. So we may go check that out. But we have not, I mean, we don't usually celebrate anything, to be honest with you. We're not like those people. Although I will have to give Mr. Salcido credit where credit's due. Usually the day after Valentine's Day, he'll go to Costco, and he'll buy all the leftover roses. And so sometimes I come home from work because I'm usually on the road and I'll have like 20 dozen roses throughout the house from Costco. And he paid half price, which makes me really happy. So that's always super sweet. But we're never in one place long enough to like buy flowers. So I was like, let's not waste the money because like I can't even stay home to enjoy them. And we're never anywhere long enough. So what do you do? Do you do anything sweet for your wife?
Yeah, I'm here. I'm home, right? My presence. No, I'm kidding. That wouldn't last very long, and that wouldn't get a laugh. Um, no, we decided we're gonna keep it quiet
Okay.
this week. We have a lot of stuff going on this spring. I just got back from a 16-hour drive turnaround trip to up in Smith River. What's up to my Smith River peeps? We have fans up there, right? And it was awesome. Had a great time. They always take care of me, but I'm a little tired. And but also, she has to work on Saturday, which is, blasphemous. And so we've decided we're gonna cook at home for each other. I'm making the protein, she's gonna make the veggie and the side, and then we're gonna hide in the room and away from the kids and eat our food. So that's and watch a movie.
That's awesome.
Usually they hide from us. We're gonna hide from them intentionally. So,
They'll
they go to
find you.
their room and eat, so we're gonna go to our room and eat. Right. So yeah, and then she wanted a workbench for she does a lot of stuff in her garden, and her and my son they build stuff outside, and so she wanted a workbench, to build the wooden contraptions she's got going, and then also for potting plants. So I got her this mobile workbench that she looked at in Home Depot, and so just those little things like that. But just ways to say, hi, I'm here, I appreciate you, those things.
It's very loving. I changed my
Yeah,
background. I had to change. I
I,
was trying
s-
to get this sunrise situation going on. It matches
I
my
see
red face
that.
today.
I love it.
Yeah, no, that's
Yeah.
super sweet. Yeah, I always love practical gifts more than like cheesy, like just because like Valentine's Day, like people like heart-shaped jewelry. I don't know any woman that like loves heart-shaped jewelry. Like, can I just say, I'm not saying that there aren't women that like heart-shaped jewelry. I've just never met them.
Yeah.
So don't give me like a stupid Zales freaking heart pendant. Like, get the heck out. Like, same thing with Pandora bracelets. Like, I don't get that. Whatever. Like SNL, I don't know if you ever watched it. SNL did a skit about like the Pandora bracelets. I'm again never met a woman who's like, "Ooh, I got this Pandora bracelet. Love it." So, I I I love jewelry. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm not gonna be mad about jewelry, but we're not that. we're not those kind of lovers. We're, you know, we're in love every day, every
Yeah,
single day.
absolutely.
So
Yeah. No, it's
that's
yeah,
awesome.
and yeah, she's not one for gaudy stuff either. So it's, she likes jewelry, but she doesn't like, she likes like actual real jewelry and
Mhm. Yeah,
stuff that's not
me
too
too.
loud. So kind of demure in that way. So it's cool. I take care of that too when I can. But
Nice.
yeah. So have you been on any fun trips lately?
I have been in Mexico living my best life.
A fun
Um,
trip.
yeah, I did. I did some dental work last week. I had a tooth that I needed to get pulled, and I went the first day for just like the checkup,
Mhm.
because I knew I needed it pulled, but the dentist needed to confirm it, obviously. I went for the very first visit. It was $10 for my exam. And then he was going to pull it that day, but I'm like, oh no, I got to work tomorrow, so that's not going to work. So I went back Friday, and my appointment was at 2 o'clock. I left at 2:09. Tooth was pulled, no pain, out of pocket. I paid $35. $35.
Wow.
And again, no pain, none. I thought, oh, maybe tomorrow it'll be a bit sore. I took a couple ibuprofen just as a precaution. He said, take a couple ibuprofen every um, 6 hours or so. I took them like the first day and I was like, I feel fine. Next day, felt fine. The only bad thing, I couldn't drink for 3 days.
Huh.
Apparently, I might be an alcoholic. I'm not really an alcoholic, but I didn't drink for the 3 days. And it was like over the weekend, it was fine. But then Monday, I can be back on my BS. So I was back on the bullshit come Monday. So I went to this place called Rockadile that's right on the beach, right here in San Felipe where I live. We'd never been there before, but it's like kind of like, I don't know if you've ever heard of like Papas and Beer, but
Hmm.
it's like commercialized, like big club that people come party down. We're not party people, so we were there at like 1 p.m. But it's literally right across from the ocean, and they had $4 margaritas, and so I was there living my best life, drinking my little margaritas on a Monday at 1 o'clock, being a degenerate. It was my favorite thing. But at 2:30, I'm like, I think we're ready to go home. I think I'm good. But we spent the day Monday just taking care of like little stuff that, haircuts. My husband has a big beard, so I got a haircut. He got his haircut and his beard trimmed. And then yesterday we took the dog to get washed at the groomer. All of that, my haircut, his haircut, and the dog getting showered was less than what we would have paid just for our dog to get groomed in the US. We all three of us got taken care of less than what we would have paid the dog groomer in the US. And so I'm like, when I say living my best life, I really am. And eggs are only like $3 for an 18 pack. I'm just throwing it out there. And these
Wow.
eggs, like these chickens are laying these eggs, I swear, like doing push-ups in the yard all day because these eggs are freaking huge, like huge eggs, and they're organic and they're wonderful, and everything's just better here. Everything's just better in Mexico. I'm just saying. Everything. I just love it so much. So
Nice.
I have to go. I have to go back to the U.S. a couple weeks, back to the real world. But I'll be back here soon enough. It'll be fine. It'll be fine. And this was a sunset. This is why I had to put the picture up because I was telling Carl before we started today, like this is what I woke up to this morning, the sunrise right above the water. This is from my bedroom window. Like it doesn't even look like a real thing. I am cloud nine. Every day's Valentine's Day here. I'm just saying. Everything's
Awesome.
great.
Awesome.
I mean, I'm not trying to brag, but I kind of am. I kind of got it right this time. I'm just
I'm
saying,
not
I'm
mad at you.
winning right now. I'm
Yeah.
one up. I'm one up on the scoreboard right now.
Nice. Nice. Yeah, I just changed my background to a picture of Mount Shasta, and which you don't always get to see, especially from that vantage point. And you mentioned Glenn County before we started,
Yeah,
and yeah, I was actually in Glenn County and coming up over a rise, and it's like, oh crap, there's Mount Shasta, and it's got snow
yeah,
all over it, and that's really the only way you can see it because it's really hidden until you get almost to Reading, and sometimes even when you're in Reading, you don't always see it. So, it's real cool that it popped up. So I had to take that picture, and
I know
so
Mount Shasta. Love Mount Shasta.
yeah, it's one of my favorite views. Especially I like it going back from Siskiyou County, like Wairika, because it's just right there and just this side of your when you're driving, it's like so cool. So yeah, I dig big
Yeah.
mountains.
It's funny because when we go to Oregon, we obviously have to drive through Mount Shasta, like down, well, I guess it would be up I-5. And there's a truck place that sells like work trucks, and they're brightly colored painted. We always
Yeah,
call them the Skittle
yeah,
trucks. And so as soon as we see the Skittle trucks, we know we're almost there.
yeah,
So I'm like,
yeah,
oh, there's the Skittle trucks almost there. That's like the landmark of knowing you're almost through the mountains.
yeah.
So.
No, I love that too. I took a picture of it last time for my daughter. She likes that type of stuff. But yeah, it's right
Do you want
there.
to hear?
What's that?
Oh, go ahead, go ahead. No, no, finish what you're saying.
I was gonna say, yeah, it's on that stretch of road there, like where Yax is, right? So yeah,
Well, I was going to ask you, do you want to hear a funny story about Mount Shasta?
sure.
Okay, so I when my kids were little, my kids are going to hate that I'm telling this story publicly, but here I go. So first and foremost, I just have to say for the record, I have not always been the best parent in the world, so that's a preface for um, this story. Did the best I could with what I knew at the time, but my grandparents lived in Chiloquin, in Chiloquin, Oregon. It's like right on the other, like right on the other side of Klamath Falls. I guess that would be the closest landmark. And so we used to have to drive to through Mount Shasta to get to Klamath Falls and to Chiloquin. Once you got to Weed, you veered off and got on 97 to go to Klamath. So at the time, I was not a very confident driver. I grew up in the Central Valley where we have one highway, 99, and to be on like highways and freeways was something I was terrified to do because I again you had one major road and one major highway, and our highway 99 is like two lanes in both directions. So with that being said, my grandpa was sick and he wasn't expected to like make it through the week, and so I wanted to go see him before he passed. And so my at the time my previous husband didn't want to come or couldn't come, I don't remember, but I was driving me and my three little kids to to Klamath Falls, and my brother was with me. My brother, who's 37 right now, or 38, I don't know how old he is, but I think he's 38 this year. But he was like 15 at the time, and so my kids had to be like 5, 3, and baby, like a year, like they were babies. So nonetheless, long story long, I'm driving through Mount Shasta, and this is already like maybe 5 hours from where we started. And at this point, my kids are antsy and they're getting like sassy. And so I told them that Mount Shasta was a volcano, and that if they talked, that if if the volcano heard kid voices, it would erupt and kill us all. And because I was so nervous. And then of course, there's these windy like road, like it's terrifying to drive, especially if you're not a confident driver. And these kids were like, and I was at my wit's end, and my brother was being a weirdo, and it's just like all these things were happening. So I had told him, like, please, like, just be quiet. We don't want this volcano to erupt and kill us all. And so they listened, and then we got over to the other side. My oldest one, always very keen, he's like, wait a minute, how come you can talk and it's not going to erupt, right? So we still had like probably an hour and a half or so to go. And uh, again, I'm like trying to entertain these kids. And so finally I said, okay, look, from here until we get to grandma's house, you guys can say all the bad words you want, just all of them. Just entertain yourself. You can say bad, like safety zone. You can say bad words. And my kids are like, nah, this is a trap, right? To get us in trouble. I said, no, I promise, say all the bad words you want. Like I just like I was overwhelmed. And my oldest one started, and he's beep, 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 like that kid like let loose. Like he had been holding in all of those bad words his whole life and just waiting for his moment because he knew all of them. And so then the little one, the my middle one, AJ, he was very suspicious, and he's like, "No, you're gonna get us in trouble." I said, "No, I promise. Just as long as you guys stay in the back seat and you sit still, you can say all the bad words you want." So he started saying bad words, and then the baby, he was just going, "Bitch, bitch, bitch," like it was the most ridiculous thing. But my brother and I are laughing so hard, like crying, like laughing so hard because it's so ridiculous to hear these kids like sounding like Andrew Dice Clay in the back seat. It was so bad. So
Like
finally,
too short.
like seriously, like I was like, I gotta really watch my mouth because these kids are picking up a lot of profanity. So then so we're like laughing, we're crying, and all of a sudden my oldest son, he's like, "Hey, yo, bitch, roll down my window." I was like, "We're done. Too fun."
Mhm. That's when you stop the car and kick him out. So you're walking to grandpa's house.
We're shutting this down. Okay, time's up. No more.
Yeah.
Just terrible parenting. But can I tell you, it made that really like hard drive, that really hard drive. Because again, I'm worried about my grandpa. I loved my grandpa so much. I was worried about my grandpa. I'm worried about driving. These kids who've never been on a 6, 7 hour drive. I mean, it was just the perfect storm for like anxiety. But that was like, oh, hey yo, bitch, roll down my window. We still talk about that at every Christmas. It was the most ridiculous thing.
Wow.
Oh, that's a
I
memory I
want to know
forgot I
where
have.
the Ayo came from.
I
Uh,
telling you that moment burned in my brain forever. And I said, "Oh, I can't give." But you know what? Can I just say, like, I think that I got the idea from my dad for
yeah.
the bad words because we would go fishing. My dad was like, he wanted boys and he had all girls. Like, isn't that the way it goes? But my dad was like an outdoorsman. He liked to go shoot stuff and go fishing and stuff like that. And so he used to take us girls out fishing with him. And like a way to like keep us from like exploring and getting into trouble or getting in the water or whatever, he'd be like, "All right, here's where the campfire is going to be, and you girls have to stay right here. And as long as you stay right here, you can say bad words. But once you leave this area, you can't say bad words anymore." And so, of course, we wanted to say bad words because it's like the forbidden fruit, right? And so we would stay in that little area and just be cussing up a storm. And so that's kind of where I got the idea from. And yeah, it was hilarious. It was terrible and hilarious. Don't nobody judge me. I was in my 20s, like forgive me. Um,
I,
but but I will say this, knowing what I know now, I would do it again exactly the same way. I wouldn't change anything. It was funny.
I
Hilarious.
grew up with my mom having all the Red Fox party albums. So I mean, I heard so many blue jokes,
Yeah.
minimal cussing, but everything else that was totally, a little kid shouldn't have heard. But yeah, my daughter had the same idea. One time we were driving back to the desert where we live from the Bay Area, and we got home just in time for like the middle of the Oscars, and I was trying to get home because I love the Oscars. And 3 6 Mafia, this the year they won for best song for It's Hard Out Here for a Pimp from
Yeah.
Hustle and Flow. And so
Such a
they
good
were as we got home, I turned it on and they were performing, and I was putting stuff away. I wasn't even paying attention. And once I got everything in the house from the car, I got her up and got her to take a bath. And as I'm walking down the stairs, I hear her singing, "It's hard out here for a pimp." And I turn around and I know I'm dying laughing, right? And I know she saw me laughing, right? Because I told her, I said, "Baby, you're not, don't say that," right? And I'm like laughing at the same time, and she sees me laughing. So she thinks it's a game, right?
right.
So I'm going back down the stairs. It's hard out here for a pimp. I'm like, okay. So I turn around. I said, "That's not funny. One time was funny, but Daddy, why isn't it funny the second time?" Like, oh, I said, "Don't do it again." Anyways, but yeah, the things kids pick up, right? Bitch, 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 make me rich, right? Yeah, you listen to way too much Too Short. So yeah,
Exactly, exactly.
yeah,
Yeah, it reminds
that's
me
his
too, the back
favorite
seat of that
word.
car. Yeah, the back seat of that car was always moving because then the other one that was famous in that back seat is my middle son loved Missy Elliott. And so he again he can barely talk. He's probably like I mean, he could talk, but he would pick up lyrics, but he would go, boys, boys, all types of boys, black, white, Puerto Rican, Chinese boys.
Yeah.
And he would sing
White
that
people.
over and over,
Yeah.
like just boys, boys. Like I said, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
It was funny. But the way he didn't say it exactly like clear like that, he would just kind of
Yeah.
make the sounds, but Puerto Rican Chinese boys, like it's just hilarious. I don't know if it had a country twang like I just put, but that was his song. That was his
Yeah. My
song.
my my stepson from a previous marriage used to sing apple bottom jeans, jeans. He'd always add the second jeans. Apple bottom jeans. He'd just walk
Oh,
around without singing it. Apple bottom jeans, jeans, boots with the fur. With the fur. I'm just like, these earworms just be messing. God, I mean, it
yeah,
messes me up, let alone, I mean, I hope these kids aren't saying that in class and then we're going to get a CPS referral, right? So,
right.
you know,
I'd be like, what's the problem? They have good taste in music. What do you want me to do?
uh,
Oh, I'm all nostalgic now for when the kids were little and cute and fun.
I
They were
know.
so entertaining. They were so entertaining.
Yeah. Yeah, I miss
I
that
used
age.
to- Me too. Me too. They were hilarious. They were annoying and hilarious all at the same time, but they
So,
used to
what'd you
come
think
up.
about the Super Bowl?
I didn't watch it.
Yeah.
I did not watch it. Remember, I am boycotting all things mainstream.
Yeah,
So
and you're
I
not a
did not
football
watch it.
person anyway.
I don't care about football either, but I was like, we could have watched it. They had a viewing party again at the brewery where everybody hangs out. So we got invited, but I'm like, no, I don't want to be one of the millions and millions of people that are like supporting this capitalistic bullshit. I'm on that right now. But I did watch the halftime show. Not like while it was on, I waited till the whole Super Bowl was over because I really wanted to see Kendrick Lamar. So I watched it on YouTube and I absolutely loved it. I loved it. Kendrick Lamar is a freaking genius. He's a genius. He deserves his Pulitzer Prize and he deserves like 14 more of them. Like, what awards can we give Kendrick Lamar for just being a badass? Like, that's all. That's all. All of the awards. I know Oscars, Grammys, Tony. I mean, I know that's not what they're for, but he should get all of them.
Yeah.
We should make a Kendrick Lamar award and give him that award for being like the coolest.
Yeah, absolutely.
Love him.
He's himself. He's
Mhm.
himself. He's who he's going to be always. I mean, he didn't even play, I think, three of my three favorite songs he does, he didn't even play. I mean, and I still enjoyed it, right? Just because the message, everything that was wrapped around it, right? And you know,
Okay.
and people who don't know, I mean, people who don't like rap, like, oh my God, it was ridiculous. Either, but it's weird. And thinking about that, I was talking about this yesterday. When people see things like that, like the halftime show or whatever, either people think their responses were either it's the greatest halftime show ever or it's the worst halftime show ever. There's never it's okay, right? Or it
Yeah.
was or just yeah, it was good. It was good. No, it was oh my God, right? It was terrible. Why can't we bring back the Rolling Stones? And
They're 177 years old. Yeah.
I hear people. There's a friend of a friend. Actually, I guess he's a friend. He's a nice, very nice guy, but he's like, oh, I can't stand. I'm not a big fan of rap. People talking fast using rented music. And I wanted to say, what music isn't rented? If I
Exactly.
mean, and somebody was like, oh, it's just like with Beyonce winning the Grammy for a country album. Right. I had a friend, oh, Beyonce winning a country album is an affront to authentic country music. And I said, well, first of all, I had to respond. I don't usually respond to those things, but I respond. I said, first of all, modern country music is an affront to traditional country music. And second of all, country music came from the blues. So if you really want to talk about what's an affront to authentic music, right, we can start piling shit on. So I mean, but and then I had another friend added something to it. And I was just like, period. Like that one,
Period.
that emoji,
Yeah.
that emoji, this one. But it's just,
All I heard
people,
was that's the front. Yeah.
yeah, but people just, they get so emotional and it's so ridiculous. And all the emotions, they're not just into what's my type of music anymore. There's a political connection now and everyone's taking sides on stuff and it's just ridiculous. It's just stupid and it's annoying. And I wish people could really had the bandwidth to think for themselves without having to, but we're social beings. I mean, that's one of the bugaboos of the human existence is, it takes an actual intentional effort like you are right now to intentionally get away from the scourge of TikTok and Instagram and all those things to be able to say, I am thinking for myself and I am exploring new things, right? I mean, otherwise, I mean, our subconscious is picking up stuff that we don't even realize we're picking up and, agreeing with or disagreeing with and having all these emotional reactions. It's still, America's so in its feelings right now. It's just stupid. But, that's
Mm.
what happens when you incite fear, when you're telling people that, you should be afraid of everything else and everyone else. And that's why we don't have block parties anymore. That's why we don't have neighborhoods where people hang out. And that's why people scream and yell at all their neighbors setting off fireworks instead of being out there with them lighting fireworks. And, it's just because, oh, it's those people. Oh my God, what are they doing? Right. It's just,
Yeah,
yeah, it's ridiculous. And so, that's the world we live in right now. Good news is there'll be a shift. I mean, I don't know what the damage is going to be done until the shift happens, but there'll be a
shift
shift just
happened.
like there is, right? You know,
Yeah. I mean, I can understand people not loving the genre. Like I don't care for country music, old or new. Like there's some like 90s country music that I'm familiar with and that I enjoyed. It's nostalgic. It reminds me of my old best friend Marsha Creaser back in high school and hanging out with her family. But if they had on like I don't even know who a country star is, like I wanted to say Clay Aiken, but that's I think that's not
Post Malone.
Post Malone. Is he country?
Now he is. Hmm.
Is he? Okay. See,
Hmm.
I don't know. I don't know. I don't know any
Because he
music
was a
after
rap star before. Yeah, when I saw
yeah,
him
I
at
don't know
Coachella in
anything.
2018, he was all about hip hop and he was high on stage and talking crap and all this. And now he's decked out in his Canadian tuxedo everywhere, and so
So
yeah.
so let's just go with that. Like if they had an artist like that, I probably wouldn't enjoy it because I don't know their music. I wouldn't relate to me. I'm not gonna turn off my television and be like, how dare them put a country star on the Super Bowl?
Yeah.
Ah, like
Yeah.
it's not that serious. But I mean I can see like again why some people maybe didn't enjoy it because it wasn't their type of music. I completely understand that. I would be pissed if Nickelback played at the Super Bowl. You know what I mean? Like, sorry, Nickelback, but not really. I'm not sorry, actually. Make better music. But
Nickelback hate. Wow.
super Nickelback, and you know who else I can't stand? Hootie and the Blowfish. Like I can't stand like I hear Hootie and I want to like throw the music making machine through the window. I cannot that I don't even know. It's just like nails on chalkboard to me. But anyways, the point is this is not Tiffany's music preferences, but never Nickelback, never Hootie. Just sorry, not sorry. But um but it wasn't about to me a lot of the complaints it wasn't about the music. It was because of who it was and what he looked like and what he represented. But let me tell you, seeing Serena crip walking on that stage, I was like, is that Serena? I mean, I was screaming on my phone, watching it on YouTube, screaming this. I was total fangirling. Everything about it was immaculate. Like Samuel L. Jackson as Uncle Sam. Oh my God, chef's freaking kiss. Chef's kiss. I loved it so much. So much.
Yeah. Yeah. And it
His
wasn't,
little
what was that?
no, I'm just saying, and then watching Kendrick with his little grins and his smiles when he knew exactly what he was doing, and just
Yeah.
watching like the sheer joy of him, like he's always so like methodical in like how he sends messages and his symbolism and like everything that I mean it I loved it so much. So good.
That's what I'm saying. He's so authentic. He's always going to be him. And there's
He's so
nobody else
smart.
like him.
No, and he's
And, you
smart.
know,
Oh, he's
from,
so smart.
from, and no album is the same. I mean, Good Kid, Mad City is like it's the best album of the 2010s as far as I'm concerned. But then his next album wasn't the same as that. But then Damn wasn't the same as To Pimp a Butterfly. And then the last of the Mr. Morale was like performance art, right? Where he just, and so And this last one is just, slappers, and I'm glad he had SZA on there. I love SZA. I could watch SZA. I could watch SZA all day, but don't tell my wife. But I could watch SZA all day. And but yeah, that was pretty cool. But yeah, so I mean, he's himself. That's what I really dig. It wasn't a sing along, which I think other people. There are some people say, "Oh, I just want to enjoy the music." Cool, but the problem is you don't know all the music, right? So
Right,
you can't expect to sing along every time. Paul McCartney ain't
right.
gonna get up there anymore. He already did that once, right? And even people Rihanna who knew their song, oh, it's Rihanna, right? Well,
Yeah, that was
so
good though.
so what's gonna happen next year? Is it gonna be, Morgan Wallen and Shabuzi, right? And
I
well,
was thinking, is that the song?
it's got to be. It's got to tip the scales, right? Because but no, but that song. Have you ever heard that song from Shabuzi, his big song, Tipsy, right? Everybody in the bar's getting tipsy, right? Yeah,
I think so. I mean, is it the one where he's like to the right, right? I think
yeah,
I saw it the
yeah.
other day.
But you know that song. You
I
know that.
only because I only saw it the other day because there were some ladies at the brewery and
Yeah.
getting down to it, and I thought, oh man, I'm hoping to never be that drunk.
But wait, you know that song because it was everybody in the club getting tipsy.
Yeah, exactly.
And
What are they
so when
sampling
people
renting music?
they're stealing hip hop music. If you turn the channel to country music, it's all hip hop and pop beats. And it's people using cadences that you use in hip hop. So when people say Beyonce is not authentic country, country these days on the radio ain't authentic country. If you really want to go there, right? She just took it and flipped it, and you don't like it because she's not going to stay there, right?
Right. She did
So,
to prove a
but
point.
yeah, she did to prove a point, and or to honor her parents and her family, right? And so it's but people have their preferences and they get so emotional about it, and then it's always twisted and politicized, and it's ridiculous. It's just everything so twisted and
It
politicized. I
was
mean,
10
just
minutes of music. You could have went and made you some more nachos. You know, if
yeah,
you didn't like it, go eat some more nachos, some baked tater skins or whatever.
yeah. Well, it's
You know
just
what
like
people eat.
Well, it's just like all these people talking about, oh, why are they getting rid of DEI? I said, you know what? They're demonizing DEI the same way they did demonize CRT, which nobody knew what it was either. And the same way it was yesterday's affirmative action, which was yesterday's women's rights, which was yesterday's, school, school segregation. I mean, people always find a way to politicize human rights issues,
The
right?
dog whistle.
And it's
It's the
ridiculous.
current dog
It's
whistle.
yeah,
Yeah.
and so it's sad, but
Yeah.
you know what you know, and if you don't know, then I can't help you. You're gonna have to find out, and you're in the find out phase right now. So,
We are definitely in the find out phase. Definitely, for sure. Anyways,
so that was Tiff and Carl on our political soapbox. So we will
yeah, I will
buff it
say
down.
one thing. I am
Yeah.
supporting Black History Month for sure. I'm not wearing it today, but I have been wearing, I have my Black Panther t-shirts I have on rotation. Like every chance they're clean, I've been wearing them this month. I love the Black Panthers and what they stood for. Same thing politicized, but like taking care of their community, the breakfast and feeding the kids and the um, you know, all of the community programs, the health clinics and stuff to take care of each other, like something really that's community, right? That's community. Um, it's weird too because again, living abroad now, that's what I'm gonna call it from now on. Living abroad, this is where like I've lived in my house in Riverside for 13 years. And I know my next door neighbor that lives like right next door to me, and I sort of kind of know the neighbor that sits on the other side, right? My two neighbors on both sides. Um, and again, we've lived next door to each other for 13 years. I don't know the names of the people who live on one side of me. I do know the name of the people who live on the other side just because we interact more. And my dog Dodger, I got from them. So they're like family members, right? They're like my dog's grandparents, I guess. I don't know how we're related, but I will say this, living here abroad in this community, I know more of my neighbors today, and I've only been here for 9 months intermittently. I know more of my neighbors here than I do in the US. And people make an effort to come and greet you, to say hello to you. They know your names, they know your dog, they know all of the stuff. When we got here last couple weeks ago. Again, we always go down to the brewery. That's like our first stop, just because that's where everybody hangs out. And like immediately as we walk in, within, I don't know, we were there maybe an hour, at least 8 different people came up and were like, "Welcome back. Oh, we're so glad to see you all." Like you're home. Like you feel like you're
Yeah.
home. Like people are actually genuinely happy that you're back and that you're alive and that you're, how long are you gonna be here? Hey, we're gonna be doing this. You guys want to stop by? Like it's beautiful. And so the people that work at the brewery are super, super sweet and they're always like busy and like trying to eat. So I brought them food. I made them like the big thing of homemade pasta and stuff.
Yeah.
They loved it. They were so happy and so grateful. Like now every time I go, they're like, "What do you what's next?" And so I'm like planning my menu of all of the things that I'm going to take for them. But it's like that's like where I feel like community. Like it's like people taking care of each other, people like again knowing each other, looking out for each other. Like it's just a beautiful thing. And I think disconnecting from all of the politics and disconnecting from like all of the media messages and disconnecting from all of that like has been such a great reset for me where you go out and you actually talk and engage with people. And we're again, we're now honorary Canadians. We found out uh, we are honorary Canadians. That's what our neighbors told us. And they said they go from BC to BC because most of them are from British Columbia, and then they're down here in Baja California. So they're like the BC neighbors, is what we call them. And they've told us you all are welcome, and you're honorary Canadians. And I said that I love that. So now I'm Canadian, American, and Mexican all in one. I am North American through and through. A. I throw the A in for my Canadian side. I even know Celsius now. I even know Celsius now, which that's what sealed the deal because I could tell the temperature in Celsius. And so now that's where I'm at in my new community.
I love the
Anyways,
Pacific Northwest. It's just a different mindset, right?
right,
Because I
right.
mean, BC, Vancouver, Victoria.
Yeah,
Well, maybe Victoria is a separate place, but Vancouver
yeah.
is very much like Seattle. So
Yeah, we're
yeah.
called we're the Port George House, I think is what they say, because we're like the farthest north in our neighborhood. So we're the Port George House is what they that's where how they describe us. Oh, this is David and Anna because I'm Anna. I don't know if I told you that I have an alter ego here in Mexico. I go by Anna. I don't even go by Tiffany here. So they're like, oh, this is David and Anna. They live in the Point George House or Port George House. Yeah. So alter ego. I have to remember that's my name most of the time too, because I forget. I'm like, oh no, and I'm like, oh, that's me, my bad.
So I have a task for you.
Okay.
Say Port George 10 times fast.
Port George, no, I can't. I can't even say it 2 times. Port George, 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 Port. Yeah, no, I can't do it. I can barely say it one time.
Yeah.
I think it's
Anyway,
Point George, Port George, something. I don't know. I'm not
I heard you
that
say Point
Canadian.
George, so I'm like,
Oh,
okay, yeah, well, she said it too many times. Yes, yeah,
yeah. I
said
do that
toy
a
boat.
lot though. I'm not attention to detail, so sorry that
I was saying,
attention to detail, not my thing. Not my
saying
thing.
toy boat fast, 10 times fast, right? You can't do
No.
it.
Nope, can't do it. Yeah, not my thing. You would think for a professional speaker I'd be good at talking, but not so much.
All right, Tiff. Well, I have in my hot little hand our question of the episode. And and the question is, what was your favorite subject in school?
Hmm. Um, Not math. No, not math was definitely it. I probably would say I'm gonna go with I can't pick one. I'm gonna go with two because I make my own rules. But English was probably one of them, and history was my second favorite. It depended on the teacher. Um, I liked reading, so reading, that's why I liked English. I liked reading and writing, and I was good at it. So I was easy A for me. But I really loved when I had a good history teacher that like brought history to life. I'm always interested. I could watch the History Channel and watch like documentaries all day long. But I had some really good history teachers that really had me engaged interested. Again, I can't remember like details. If you were like, what year did the War of 1812 start? I'd be like, oh God, that's a trick question. But if you ask me like, what were the implications of World War II? Like the concepts of it I could get. I just didn't
Hmm.
always remember the generals or you know, the key players, but I could talk about what happened. I loved history. It was always interesting to me. I think it's because I like storytelling. I think that's probably why storytelling is my jam. So when I have a good teacher that does like storytelling, then I'm into it. What about you?
Oh, easily history. Yeah, history's. I mean, that was my favorite. Well, actually, up until fifth grade, it was geography because I loved. I well, and the only thing I knew about geography is I could name all the state capitals.
Oh, nice. Nice.
But my favorite episodes of Schoolhouse Rock were always the history ones, and it was always something that I just really was easy for me because I'm really into. Okay, this is an issue. Why is it an issue? What started it? What are the causes of it? Looking back at it, telling a story, right? And that's my mindset. Rather than if I hear something, I'm one of those people. If I hear something or see something on TV or in a movie, I want to look it up. I want to look up what it is they talked about. I want to see who that person is and where they played before and how they started, right? So that's just my mindset. It's just a natural place. I want to see what the causes are, what's the background, what makes people tick. I love that stuff. So, that's an easy, it's motivating for me to remember that stuff, to look it up, to know that stuff. And and I think a lot of folks there's a lot of folks who don't like history, and it's, if you don't like history, well, shit, this is where we are, right? Historically, we, you know, if we recognize the places where we were, then, maybe some of the stuff that is happening now wouldn't happen. It's just that, I was thinking about it. You see a lot of, there's talk about a rise of neo-Nazism and white supremacist groups, even in Europe and in Germany, even though Germany has many memorials to the Holocaust to make sure that you never forget what happened, right? But the problem is it's historical now, right? Most of the people who survived the death camps are dead, right? And so you have, people who maybe in their late 80s, if they were children, and maybe pushing 100. I used to go to the Museum of Tolerance when I lived in LA, and
Yeah.
I really enjoyed it, and it really helped, just gain a perspective. I would take groups of kids there. I'd take my daughter. I'd take, family members, always, just so that people could really experience, because it was really an immersive, interactive thing where, you would get. Have you ever been there?
I have not been there.
Okay, so they take you through a a place where it talks about hate and bias and challenges, and then it takes you through the history of the Holocaust, and you pick up a card with a person, right? And it gives you the history of that person is. And as you go through the Holocaust exhibit, there's like a couple checkpoints where you put the card into the machine and it tells you what happened to that person and where they were at that point. And at the end, you find out if they survived or died. And so it was completely emotional, right? You're tied to it and you're learning about all this stuff. And then at the end, we would always go to see one of the speakers, right? Because there was still, in the late 90s, early 2000s, there was a lot of people that were still alive and people would show you their tattoos and talk about, the stuff that they had to go through. And we're losing all of those people. And so you don't have a living memory. When you don't have a living memory, it's harder for people. I mean, all you have now are movies and documentaries.
Mhm.
And people, it's harder if you have somebody in front of you, it's harder to not pay attention to them than watching a movie and just turning it off or looking at your phone, right? Or whatever else it is that we can do to distract us when some of those things are happening. And so we're losing a lot of living memory of the worst parts of humanity. And I mean, we're losing a lot of folks who fought for civil rights. We're losing a lot of folks who fought for women's rights in the 60s and 70s, right? And so it's something where if it's not there and it's in a book now, and those books are getting manipulated now, where we don't always have the real what's going on. I mean, shit, we didn't always have the real what's going on. I had to look for that for myself, even though history was my favorite subject. There's a lot of stuff I've learned in the last 15 years on my own that I didn't learn when I graduated from, from college with a degree in history, right? And so, but if we don't have those living memories, living history, my grandmother, I mean, my aunt just passed 2 weeks ago. She was 99. She was a family historian. I've have a couple recordings of her telling our family history that I want to eventually write into a book one day because it's crazy. I mean, her grandfather was a slave, right? He was born
Yeah,
a slave, right? So, she was that last link, to living history of I knew a slave, right? Who was my grandfather, who became a free man, got his 40 acres, and then had to flee when the posse came to try to take it away from him, right? So these are real things that are no longer, and real people that are no longer there. And we can record them, we can write them in books, we can have video, but it's different. It's just like when people are texting, you have all you know, uh, these internet warriors, right, that are posting all this, talking all this shit online and or sending texts, that are very dry and very dramatic. But when you're in person with them, it's a different dynamic. All of a sudden, people are a little more polite,
right.
right? Most people,
Keyboard
you know,
gangsters.
yeah, some
Keyboard
some
gangsters. That's
sociopaths,
what
they
I
don't give
call
a
them.
shit, right? But it's definitely something where when we don't have if we don't have that living memory, guess what? It's going to get repeated. And we're going to have this new generation of people that say, I remember when this happened. Let me sit down and tell you a story that you can't turn off unless you literally get up and walk out of the room. Right. And so it's, I love history. I wish more people loved it. It really does explain a lot. For some people, it's painful. For some people, as painful as it is, it really is a reminder of, as painful as it is, do we want to go back to that pain? Do we want to experience that pain again? And if we don't, we really need to look into how we've evolved and, maybe devolved as a species and as a society.
Yeah. I'm,
So
okay, I'm on solar and I have my battery on. I was trying to die right now. So okay, we're good. We're fine. Um, Speaking of history, I'm sure you're familiar. This is probably not news to you. Like what do you know about the four turnings? I don't know if you're familiar with that concept, the four turnings. It's basically to, I guess, summarize it here, it's like every 20 to 25 years, they have these patterns in history, and you can like track it, these four turnings. There's like it's like generational. So every 20 to 25 years, you see like the first turning. This is where things are really good. They call it the high. And this is where like things are really, really good. People are conforming, that they trust institutions. There's a lot of prosperity and an uptick in like society where there's a lot of again cohesiveness and again overall prosperity. And then from there, you go into they call it the awakening, the second turning. And this is where there's like increased spirituality, but also where people start to rebel against institutions. They start to question, like, what's going on? Are things fair? Are they realistic? They start to challenge authority. And then that leads into what they call the unraveling. And this is where people really start to distrust institutions, and individualism is at its highest, where people like, I gotta worry about myself. And then that leads into crisis. And this is where there's some kind of revolution where, like, whatever the established social order is, it gets broken down. And then that leads us to like an area of new growth and optimism, where again, the old system is dismantled and we start to like create this new system. So if you look at history, like in blocks of like 80 to 100 years, like you can almost watch like very predictably almost like the stages of team development, like the forming, storming, norming, and performing. It's very, very similar to that in the sense of like history, where again, think about like after World War II. Like World War II was the crisis. If we really look at it in these blocks, like War II was the crisis. This is where, again, the whole world, hence the name World War II, World War. Everybody's fighting. Um, everything's getting demolished. Like monarchies and government systems are being challenged. All of these things are happening. But then right after that, this is where we had like the awakening, especially in the United States, where we started to see like all kinds of prosperity happen, right? The baby boomers, babies were being born and, systems were being established. And then right after that, you start to see civil rights movement and you start to see where again, this system of, dad goes to work, mom stays at home and raises the kids. The women are like, wait, what about us? We're equal people too. Don't you remember? We all went to work while you were at war. Don't you remember we used to be able to do stuff? And so then that leads us into, again, from the civil rights movements, people starting to challenge again the status quo. And then we had all of the Jim Crow laws. Like, I mean, it just goes on and on and on. I think we're at a point where we're about to go into crisis again. I see like the unraveling and the crisis looming if we're not already there. But that leads us again into prosperity. And if you think about when were we most prosperous as a country, like the 80s and 90s, like one of the few times where we had a balanced budget and a surplus, like financially, and then, of course, we had another crisis. I mean, it goes on and on and on. So I think that's kind of interesting to read about the four turnings, is what they call it. Um,
Yeah.
where do you think we're in the unraveling or the crisis? We're
Oh, for
definitely
sure.
not at the high.
Well,
We
we do that. We do that as a society, and you say it sounds like storming, norming, performing. It sounds like the domestic violence cycle to me,
yeah,
right?
it just
Where you
felt
have
like that too.
you
Yeah,
have the honeymoon phase, right? And then you have the build up, and then you have the release, and then you
yeah,
have, oh, I'm sorry, the reconciliation, and I don't mean to be like that. I'll never be like that. And then there's a honeymoon phase, and then it happens like that. But yeah, I mean, there's significant events that happen in every generation, right? And
yeah,
so just thinking about baby boomers, they went through the Cold War after World War II. I mean, the reason we had prosperity is because we had the buildup of the buildup of the military industrial complex, right? So, I mean, we had factories, a lot of those Lockheed, Northrop Grumman, and all those places that are out there in the desert and in Idaho now, they were in South Central. They were in Long Beach, right? In Lakewood, right? And so people were working there, right? And so, you know, um, you know, South LA and Compton and Long Beach, those places all had middle class families. And then those, they moved away for cheaper places to build stuff, right? And so we we have that, we recognize that. But I mean, just thinking about, the cycle of human nature. I mean, I always think of it in the longer term. And we've had 250 years of the same economic system, right, in our country. Next year will be the 250th year of since the Declaration of Independence was signed, right? And so just thinking about how long do empires last? Look at the Roman Empire. How long did it last? Right? Maybe 350, 400 years of really powerful prosperity. And even then, there were some downturns. And then until they eventually moved from Rome and went to Constantinople and turned into the Byzantine Empire, right? And just think about how many of these. See, this is where I get into my bag. So, you ask me these questions. We could have a history hour, right?
right.
But yeah, I mean, you always see that. You see where people especially express their ability to want to be equal and have equity. And then when that happens, the problem with equity and creating equity is that whoever is on this side of the equity, they're going to lose a little bit, right? And so they're holding on. Whoa, why can't we have this? And why is this being taken away from me? Well, so that your neighbor can have the same rights as you. Well, what do you mean rights? What are you talking about? Rights, right? And I worked hard for mine. If they didn't, it's just because they didn't work hard enough, and that's a challenge. That's something I talk about, Tiff. Whenever you see silos and you have
Hmm.
departments that don't talk to each other, what do you hear from one department to the other? Well, they don't work as hard as us. I don't know what they do, but I know that they're not doing it right. Right? When you don't know what the other person does, your brain goes to your superior in your work ethic or your values or your morals, right? We have to be better than them and they have to be less than us. That's the only reason why there is a deficit in what we're doing because we can't just say, well, I got this here because I was born into a level of privilege. We can't talk about that. Our brain does not want us to talk about that, right? And so it's something to recognize when people are striving and wanting to have the same. And that's the problem. I mean, people, I tell this all the time, most folks I know that are in marginalized communities, we don't want to take any of your stuff. They just want to have the same access to be able to acquire their stuff the same way you acquired your stuff, right? You know, and so if that's not something that, and you don't want that to happen, maybe intellectually you think, well, they should be able to. But emotionally, when you hear people say, well, if they acquire their stuff, it's going to take away from your stuff, that's fear. And then people get protective. At the end of the day, we will choose self preservation, right? That's the strongest urge we have. That's the strongest natural urge we have is to stay safe and protect ourselves. And so we have to be counterproductive to that. We have to trick our brains to say, if this person gains access to things that they didn't have before, but that I have, that it's a good thing a rising tide lifts all boats. But that's not a natural urge that we have, And so it's a challenge to try to get people to see that, especially when you hear different things from different people who are telling you that that's not true, right?
Yeah.
But that's why when I teach people, when we have those conversations about belonging and people include being included and checking out with biases, right? It's I say, bias is a natural thing. We all have bias. We all judge each other, right? And so when you say I'm not judgmental, I don't have a bias bone in my body, you just haven't really examined what your bias is, because I guarantee you your bias shows up, 500 times a day, and you don't even know it. Just oh, I don't like that the way the person wearing that shirt. My dad taught me that I was supposed to tuck in my shirt. I can't believe that they're wearing their shirt out. That's a bias. Right? I have a preference and I have an emotional response to seeing somebody wear their. I have a flat billed hat bias. Why? Because every coach that I had in baseball, all the way up until college, used to make us run laps if we came to practice with a flat billed hat or a hat turned backwards. I can still hear them in my head, right? And so those are emotional responses we have. Even when I could care less how people wear their hat, I still see that and say, God, you know, they don't wear their hat right. Or when I see somebody wearing their hat right, oh yeah, okay, well, they must have played ball. These are assumptions that we make through our biases. It's a human urge. It's what we do. And so how do we counteract that? We have to be intentional. Intentionally say, I choose to find out more. I choose to be curious. Right. And that's an urge that we all have to recognize we have so that we can combat it. Because until we recognize that we have it, then we're not going to change. You don't know what you don't know. And if you don't know that you have a natural, biological, neurological urge to take things personal, like we've been talking about in these last episodes, and recognize that I need to really be more curious about that other person and ask those questions intentionally and do things intentionally that aren't self-serving, then nothing's going to get fixed and nothing's going to get solved. But like I said, it's hard because we devalue education, we devalue knowledge now. We are going with our heart and going with, well, this person, I like this person, they share my values. Well, values are personal things. They're extremely personal, right? And we've been taught that our values are the most important thing. That's what our brain wants. Our brain says those things that our parents taught us, those things that those important people in our lives taught us are the most important thing we need. And we take those out into the world and then we judge other people based off of them. And so they exist and they're always going to be there, whether you like it or not. But to recognize I'm feeling this way, but is there something else that I need to know to help me change my perspective? That's not easy. And that's why it's so hard. That's why history is so jacked up. That's why we have so many wars. That's why we have so many, genocidal issues. That's why we have so many social issues that, people are in pain and people who have power hold on to power. Why? Because power is power and I don't have anybody to tell me I can't do it. And now that you're telling me I can't do it, no, I got the power to say I can do whatever the hell I want. That's a personal, emotional urge. How do we move past that? This concludes part 1 of our episode. Stay tuned for part 2, coming Tuesday to all major podcast platforms.